Okay, next we're going to talk about, and this is really important and it's easy to confuse, how people absorb information. And it's really important that you distinguish. There's three types. One of them is visual, the other one is auditory or by hearing, and the third type is people that just kind of sensory people. They just sense things, and we're going to describe the differences. We're going to describe the cues that they give you as to what kind of person that they are. It matters to you because if they're visual people and all you're doing is talking to them, you're marginalizing, you're handicapping yourself in terms of your ability to get information to them in a way that they understand. So this is kind of like, how do they communicate and how do they get stuff? So the first type is visual. Words that people use that are visual are picture, see, watch, look, focus, appear. They do a lot of upper eye level stuff. They're like, when you talk, they're going like this, and they use their hands like a camera. And so they're visual people. And it's really important, and their body language is as if they're always trying to picture something. Phrases that you can use, I see what you mean. I get the picture. Don't be afraid to use your hands with these people. May I show you how this works? Okay, show you. Does this look good to you? So how do you adjust your physical presentation to reflect these people? Be visual. Lots of pictures, lots of graphs, brochures. They love, visual people love virtual tours. Charts and graphs are very important, use a lot of color. Be visual. Now, this is so important. Here's a tip. I'll give you a concrete tip. If I walked into a presentation, I always put the presentation not in their lap and not in my lap. I put it between us. I'd say, I've got some information here, and I would put it on the table like that. Thank you. I would put it on the table like this, and I would say, would you like to get started? And they'd say, great. And auditory hearing people would say, tell me all about it. The visual people, the minute I put this on the table, especially extremely visual people, would pick it up and start looking at it and start leafing through that, and then I would be still talking to them, but trust me when I tell you, they couldn't hear me, okay? Because they were busy, okay? So understand who you're talking to and adjust your presentation accordingly. Amy's going to talk for a moment with you about hearing people, what we call auditories.
So these people use words involving sound. They tap, they hear, listen, speak, those kinds of things. They tend to do what Dennis is doing right now, just sort of swaying, tapping, kind of almost have like music playing in their head. And so you'll find them just moving around a lot. They
do this. When they're talking to you, they'll do that. They'll lean their ear at you.
Yeah, they will. Phrases that you want to use is talk about you. I hear you. Sounds good. Does this sound good to you? Listen to this. Let's go over this. Make your points verbally. So, like Dennis said, they're probably not going to be interested in your charts and graphs. They're going to want to hear you explain things. Do a lot of listening, ask open-ended questions, and you can use a presentation, but just use it as a guide for you to explain things. You don't expect them to really want to interact with it visually, even if it looks real pretty. I think, when you're talking to them, a lot of times they'll use phrases like, does that ring a bell? Or, it's anything that has sound in it is what these people will use. And they do not learn by reading or anything. So that's another reason you want to try to figure out what type of person somebody is, because That's how you want to communicate with them throughout the transaction. These are the people you probably want to call and tell them what the next step is. You don't want to send them lengthy emails. They don't want to read them. They want to talk to you. Visual people are probably fine reading stuff, and you can email them all day long and text them. But if somebody's auditory, they're probably going to need to hear it.
The next type is a group called sensory people, and this one is the hardest one. They're the hardest ones to identify. But a sensory person does things on the basis of how they feel or how things make them feel. If they walk into a house, they'll just kind of stand in the foyer and they'll just kind of look around and like they're trying to absorb, and they're constantly checking on themselves. They're people who go with their guts. They're instinctive people. They use physical words like hold and grasp and move, and they have a tendency to kind of bump you. They're charming people, and they're a lot of fun to be around. But they go from their guts. They go from their instincts. So they'll say things like, "How do you feel about that? Let's keep in touch. Let's touch base once in a while. Transition is going smoothly." Use tactile words like that. "Can I give you a hand with this?" Make your points emotionally. These are people you can pat on the shoulder, that kind of stuff. They're a lot more physical than most people. Ask a lot of open-ended questions. Listen carefully. And watch how they react to things emotionally. They have a tendency to just work off of their own emotional responses to things.
These are also people who will grab that folder.
Oh yeah.
They want to feel it. Especially they see the shiny. They're going to want to touch it. They're going to want to, just touch everything. They might not care to look at it. They're not going to be like the visual people who are going to start reading through and looking at the pictures. No, they want to feel it. They want to just have it in their hands. So be aware of that. That can be another clue for you.
How do they communicate? How do they absorb information? Especially try to differentiate between people who see things and people who hear things and people who sense things. And adjust your presentation to who you're talking to. Those are some clues, a little bit of clues about how people absorb.
Yeah, and keep that in mind, as I said, for when you're communicating throughout the transaction, but also when you're showing houses. As Dennis said, the sensory people are going to really pay attention to how they feel in a house. It can be exactly what they're looking for, but if it has a cold feeling to them, it's not going to be what they're looking for.
They rub the wallpaper. It's the best way to describe it.
Yeah, they do. They touch everything. Yeah. And visual people, the pictures are going to be very important to them. And so make sure your marketing is, appropriate for who you're talking to. I don't know, anything else that you would say?
No, those are the really important points, I think, Yeah.